What is your name?
My name is Debra Clark.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in 1955 here in Caldwell County.
Have you lived in Lenore all your life? If so, in what area?
Yeah, I've always lived here, never moved away. Thought about it, thought I'd like to, but it just worked out that way. But I've lived here all my life, so I grew up here, and just have always stayed.
How did you and your family come to be here in Caldwell County?
Well, my grandma and grandpa lived in Watauga, and there was a really bad flood, probably around 1940 or so, that came through up there. They had a farm, and it washed everything away that they had, their home, their livestock. They lost everything. So they had 3 kids, and they packed up and came to Caldwell County looking for work and a new place to live. The furniture industry was really starting to kick in, I guess, and so it was a good place to come to start over again. The jobs that I had were not my choice. It was just assumed that, you know, about everybody that we knew that lived here worked in the shops, and it was just kind of taken for granted that that's what I would do too, and going to college or finding anything else, choosing a career wasn't talked about much, and it wasn't really thought about. But I used to think that I would like to be an archaeologist. I love ancient history and science, and I love the history. I don't like modern history as much as ancient history. I just think it's fascinating, and I love to watch things on the History Channel and on Discovery of any archaeological finds and things. It just fascinates me to still learn about that. So I really wish that had been something that a dream I could have followed, but just wasn't meant to be.
How was your childhood growing up in Caldwell County? What can you tell me about it?
It was busy, but it wasn't busy in the same way it is now. Everybody worked hard during the week, and then on Saturday and Sunday when people were off, everybody went and did their shopping. We went to Lenore because it was closest to us, and everything was focused in town. There were 2 grocery stores up there. There was an A&P and a Winn-Dixie. There were 2 movie theaters up there, department stores, a drugstore, a deli, bakery. You went up there to buy your appliances. You went up there to pay your bills. You did everything in town, and so, you know, it was a big deal to get to go up there, because you could just walk from place to place to place, whatever you needed to do. But now it's so much different, because it just seems like everything has dispersed and spread out, and we got businesses on 321 North and 321 South, and we've got businesses on 18, and grocery stores are spread out everywhere, and you can't just walk from, say, the post office to the grocery store. You got to drive, and things just weren't geared that way then. You parked and you did everything you had to do in town, and then you went home.
Do you have any heirlooms or any keepsakes that have been passed down to you?
Yeah, I do, and I'm really glad that I have them. I have a rock that my grandfather, he worked on the Suez Canal, and when he came back,
Kind of
he
heavy.
had this quartz rock, and my dad gave it to me. And I also have, and I don't know, my dad gave this to me, and I don't know where these originated, but I have.
I like the orange on it.
Yeah, it's pretty, isn't it? I
Yep.
always thought I'd like to have a ring made out of that or something. It's very heavy, isn't it?
Kinda. Like, kinda.
And I have some money. It kind of surprised me that I had this. I didn't remember it. It's Confederate money, and it says it's the Confederate States of America. And it says Richmond, February 17th, 1864. I have a 500 and a 100. Abe Lincoln is on the 50 that I have. And I have a 20.
It was a simple dollar bill back then. They just
and a 5. And look how much bigger they are than our dollar bills.
It was simple back then. They just had the
Yeah.
had the bill on the back of it.
And I also have some. I've got a $25 bill from the Bank of China. A couple of 10s that are also from Chinese. No, these are Japanese. Excuse me. These are Japanese money. So I guess these came from my grandfather and through my dad, and my dad gave them to me. And my dad also, he liked, when he was young, he used to get out and ramble around a lot, and he found he lived in Buffalo Cove, and he found a Native American peace pipe. It's you can tell looks like a piece of, I guess that's a piece of stone. It's extremely heavy, but it's been carved.
Like stone.
It's been carved and has a little hole in it where, you could put something down in there and then smoke it. And he gave that to me, and I think it's priceless. I like all of this stuff because to me it holds an awful lot of historical value. It's where we come from.
How have important events throughout our lives affected you? Your like the civil rights movement, war, the economic downfall. How has that impacted you?
Well, probably the youngest was the civil rights movement, and whenever that all came into play, at that time I really wasn't old enough to really realize what all was going on and what was happening, why it was such a tremendous upheaval. But it was, as things got more integrated with in the schools and everything, it was a particularly scary time. It was the right thing to do, but it put a lot of anxiety and stress to walk in and not know, what was going to happen that day, and who was going to react, and if they were going to be upset. And you had to be very careful and tread very lightly, and it wasn't a very comfortable situation for us to have been placed in. But fortunately, it finally worked out. It was just something that had to be done. Unfortunately, we did not have diversity. What we had here was furniture, and that was pretty much it. And then whenever that declined, it brought with it a tremendous amount of insecurity and anxiety, not knowing what was going to happen or who was going to have a job and who wasn't going to have a job. It was really hard to see the place go from such a vibrant place to one that was about ready to die. I remember seeing the movie Cars, and the song that James Taylor sings in
Our
that
town.
about the little town, Radiator Springs, and that wasn't that
Yep.
the name of it?
Yep.
Called Our Town, yeah.
Prosperous city.
Yeah. It really, it was a beautiful song, but it really upset me too, because he said it so eloquently, and it made me think so much of the way it used to be here. It's been scary, but all things happen for a reason, and I think all in all it's been probably a good thing, because it's opened, the way for more diversity to come into the area, and different kinds of businesses, and the businesses that were here that did weather it, they're still here. So I think, change is good.
What do you value most about your life, and why?
Probably the fact that I probably value the most that I'm still here. When I was younger, I used to think I wanted to leave, but now that I'm older, I'm glad I am still here. It's a relatively safe place to be. It's a good place to be. The crime rate's not so bad, and it's really scenic. I've only been as far as Arkansas.
Would you want to go any further?
Not really, but even going there, I didn't see any place that was as beautiful as the Blue Ridge Mountains, and being in this part of North Carolina. It's just very scenic. Maybe the only thing that might be comparable to it would be the Rocky Mountains, to me.
Do you have any special sayings or any expressions?
When I was younger, my mother used to tell me that was the way that you learned things, was by asking questions. And so I really took that to heart, but then when I started to ask questions, she told me I asked too many questions. But wanted to know, I had a lot of questions, and I wanted to know a lot. So I was interested.
About your family, what do you know about their name? Where does your name come from? Does it mean something good or bad?
Coffee, I believe, is Irish, and I think it may mean victorious or something like that. Hodge is English, so I guess I'm Irish English.
Whenever you were in school, how was it back then? Was it very different than it is now?
Yeah, one thing I remember about the school, of course, it was everything. I mean, we had wood floors, but when you walked into the school, they kept the woods oiled. So now that I think about it, it's probably a horrific fire hazard. But you would walk in, and it smelled so good. The classes were small.
How much was the average in your class? Now it's between 18 to about 23 people. How much was the average back then?
Probably not a lot different. Maybe between 12 and 15.
Not too bad.
So that's, it just depends on where you went to school. I went to school, of course, in town. And so the school in the city or the town would have been a little bit larger than the one further out in the county. But I don't know. I don't remember any young teachers. They were all old. The discipline probably was a little bit rougher, because...
How did it work?
Yeah, you didn't behave. You got pulled out of the class and taken into the hall and paddled.
Oh, did the paddles back then have those holes in them for wind resistance?
I don't remember seeing any of them with holes, but I do remember you know,
If they have,
you didn't see them.
if they had holes in them, they'd hurt.
Yeah, you could, but they'd take you out in the hall and you could hear what was going on, and that was scary enough. You know, I always tried to stay on the right side of the teacher so I wouldn't get into trouble and need a.
How'd you learn back then?
We had a book for practically everything. Had to do a lot of writing. At the time, it seemed like a lot more work. Sometimes it was okay if it was something I was interested in, and when it wasn't, it was boring.
If you, this is probably out of curiosity, if you wasn't learning out of a book, what did you learn out of?
The teacher writing on the blackboard.
And you would have to take notes, all of them?
Yeah, we'd have to copy it down. They didn't make Xerox copies for us.
In PowerPoints like we have now?
No, they didn't have any of that fancy stuff. If you were going to remember it, you had to write it all down.
What kind of music did you like back then? And what did you listen to back then?
The Beatles from England. I saw their first show on Ed Sullivan, so I was really enraptured with them.
What about the Rolling Stones?
I thought they were kind of grungy.
Kind of grungy? they were,
compared to the Beatles, who came over in suits, they were grungy. The Beatles, well, I mean, you know, the Rolling Stones are still going strong, but the Beatles were ahead of their time too.
On the school, what was your favorite subject?
I liked math and history. I don't even know if I thought about having a favorite then or not.
What was your least favorite subject?
Probably English.
Why English?
Just wasn't as interesting. Of course, I did like reading Edgar Allan Poe. I thought he was very good.
What was your favorite poems? What were some of his favorite?
The Telltale Heart. The Raven. They're two of my favorites.
When did you first hear about Poe?
I don't remember.
Was it during one of your English classes? Or?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was something that the teacher brought up.
About the changes that you said. That you said about how over and over in Uptown where it was the center of everywhere.
Yeah.
Like with the movie theaters and the grocery stores, with now it being spaced out. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the changes that we've had over the years?
Well, some changes is good. It's just a sign of the times. Businesses, and you know, they had to have more parking. They had to have more room. They had to build bigger buildings. The town couldn't accommodate all of the growth that we needed at that time, and so I guess that's when things started to spread out. But it bothers me to think that, well, we used to have a mall.
Do you have any words of wisdom?
Yes, I would tell you to stay in school, to get a good education, to find something that you have a passion for, and something that you love to do. Don't do what you think your parents or your grandparents expect you to do. Do what will be the best for you. Something that you, like I said, are passionate about. Something you look forward to doing every day of your life. And if possible, stay here. It's a good place.
Thank you for your time.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for talking to me.
Me too. You're welcome.